triangle though, right? So the way that it's set up right now, it's fairly open, like the triangle isn't really well defined. Remember I showed you in one of the photos the angle of light, the direction of light that was, so this is how you start to notice as you look at portraiture in books and magazines, you start to notice the angle of light and where it's coming from and see if you can identify the lighting sources that we're going to be studying over the next couple of weeks, okay? So in this case here, what I'm going to do is, in order to get a more defined triangle, I'm going to raise the light up, okay? So when you are raising lights on these, what you want to do is raise, you can raise, so remember I attached this with a Velcro down at the bottom? Okay, so now it's sticking a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just loosen it up so I have room to move the light higher up. Okay, and when you're moving the light up and you have a modifier on it, it's heavy. So hold it with both hands until you've reached the height that you want. Then grab it really well and tighten the knob. And then you can also go up a little bit this way if you need to. But start with the taller one because if you reach the height of, if you reach up to the tallest height and you need to do any modification, it's a lot easier to do it from the lower knuckle, okay? So just watching to see, do you mind just facing forward? Thank you. Okay, so we may have to go up a little bit higher. And you can see, so tell me you guys, talk to me about the property of light here. The properties of light. So what's the color temperature?
It's warm.
It's about 5,500, yeah? Okay, well actually, this is a modeling light, so it's a little bit warmer, right? So I don't know exactly what the modeling light is, but once we use the flash, we get about 5,500. The modeling light's probably 4,000, maybe somewhere between 35 and 4,500. Do you know what the modeling light temperature is? No. Okay, so we can, you can easily, measure it, right? If you wanted to, you can easily use your degree Kelvin and find out what you would need to set your degree Kelvin at to know where you get balanced light. Okay, so that would be one way to tell. So once you use the flash, though, we're working at about 5,500 degrees for our color temperature. So what about the quality of light?
Soft.
It's soft, yeah. So there aren't any. There's some strong shadows, but they are they're darker shadows, but they aren't really defined lines. So because we've thrown a modifier on it, we're diffusing the light like a cloud would, or So perfect. Okay. So what are the other ones? Direction. Direction. So you can tell that the direction is by where the shadows are falling. Obviously the nose is one of the easiest places to see where shadows are falling, but you can really tell on this side. And then even like the angle of the light, right? So looking at the nose, you can see the angle of the light coming down, and then down through on the neck is a really classic, easy area to tell where the light's falling from. Okay, what are the other things? Intensity. So
The flash will be fairly high intensity.
yeah, the flash would be fairly high. Depends upon how powerful it is. It's diffused right now, a little bit more than it was before. Okay, so intensity is going to be fairly high here. And the light, as you move the light in closer, it's going to become more and more intense. Okay, right. And then contrast is the last one. So that's where we could be. What we could do is we could take our light meter and we could read. We could do the ratio reading on these. Lots of people do that when they're doing portraiture. And when you're looking at the ratio, you're figuring out the difference in the exposure between the highlights and the shadows, remember? So the highlight area would be where the light's shining the brightest, and the shadows would be where the shadows are falling. So if you wanted to read the shadows, so one of the things that you want to keep in mind is that you see the dome is out, right? So if you were to put the light meter over here, you're not reading the shadows because the light source is touching the dome. So what you could do is you could just bring this so that you're, let's see here, you could potentially try and fit this in so that the light source isn't actually touching the dome, and then you could read the shadows. You could also just go like this. You see how the light source isn't touching the dome anymore? It's not, isn't your light source? Yeah, it's probably. You can try, I mean, you can just see, you can try different things, right?
Yeah.
But the light source is touching the dome there, so you really don't want that.
What if you
So
went, like,
we're not,
here, or is that?
you're really far away, I think, at that point. I would try to stay as close as you can to the front of the face. We're not going to be reading ratios on our subjects, but we'll be able to. We'll definitely be able to. You guys can try, experiment, right? But I want you guys to think about the properties of light and how they relate to different scenarios that you're shooting. Okay. So, with this particular modifier, we're doing Rembrandt, so we're still looking for that classic triangle, which really hasn't happened yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the light off to the side a little bit. Can you see the triangle showing up a little more?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. And the other thing is that what's happened is I have the light actually kind of going that way. And what I really want to do is I want to have it come down at a stronger angle. Okay, so what I got to do is take a good hold of your light stand, lower it. Okay. And then I just want to angle this down. And hold on to it again because the softbox is weighting down, so as soon as you loosen this, it'll drop. So just be aware of that. And I'll probably put down just a little bit here, a little more, not quite that much. And then we want to lift this back up again. So if you are the one taking the photographs, you're the one standing in front with your camera and someone is assisting you. Okay? So you're going to have someone come around and take a look and just see. So do you mind just facing forward for us for a second? And we'll just take a look. So that's pretty good. So you see the triangle happening there? Okay, and could you just tuck your chin down just a tiny bit? And there it's just a little bit even more defined. Okay, so you can move this around a little bit more if you want to. And you see the difference there even. Okay, as you're you can also just swing, like if you loosen this, again, you're holding on to the light. You can swing it slightly. You see that? Even just those slight movements completely change the triangle. Okay, so you'll be able to do some, slight modifications, but I want you guys to be aware, of the weight of things and how. Okay, so that's a pretty defined triangle right there. So, if I'm taking a photograph, would you mind doing this? I don't need to hold it over there. So, you could remind me what the exposure is on the.
This one's ISO 200 and 200.
Oh, okay. Is that the other one? Okay, let's do this one. ISO 100?
100, 120.
Okay, so I'm just checking that making sure that it's the same. Okay, so if you could just take a reading, we'll just do a test here. What does it say?
4.06.
Same thing. That's interesting. Let's do another one.
4.09.
Okay, so that's basically 5.6. So that's what I'm going to set on.
Yeah, it's plenty above 5.
So I'm setting 5.6. Okay, so now I'm going to come in nice and close. I'm using a zoom lens here that zooms out to 70. And I'm focusing on the eyes because that's what I want to have sharp. Okay, and there's an exposure. That's set on highlight. And you can see that the skin tones, there's no bloom, so it's well exposed. No blinking highlights, you're not going to lose any details in any of the areas there. Okay? So, now our options here. You guys remember the 5 and 1? So we're going to be using these. Now, because we're using white light, you're probably going to want to use, instead of, you can use the gold, of course, which is going to warm up the subject if you want. But the gold, the silver, whatever it is, whatever works for you is fine. When we were shooting outside, we were kind of avoiding the gold because the light was already quite yellow, right? But inside here, you can use anything that you want. So, but remember that there's gold, there's silver, there's a gold-silver combo, there's a white. So white is going to reflect less than these metallic surfaces. So if you're finding that you're looking and you're seeing too much of the fill, then you can go just to the white. So, and remember, when you're using the reflector, you're not standing like this. It's not helpful when you can't see the subject. So you want to be looking at the subject yourself. Okay, and so you see the difference here. Just adding a little bit of fill versus none at all. Okay, and then you can change the amount of fill depending upon how you angle the light. Watching the shadows is particularly like what's happening underneath here as well. Okay, and then also, you know, as soon as you add in a modifier, what do you have to do?
Read
You read your exposure, yeah, so that you're checking. So can I get someone to come in here? Another volunteer, Andrew. You can hold that up for us, and if you don't mind taking a reading. Okay, and yeah, that's good. This is really just to get a sense of the difference in the exposure, right? Okay, so what have we got?
1.0.
Okay, so the same thing.
Try again, I might have clicked it off.
Okay. Oops.
5.6.
So it's hardly changed at all. So one of the reasons for that is because we really haven't even changed our light source. All we've done is thrown in some more light into the shadow side. Okay, so now this is where you guys want to think about when we're doing the mannequin and you were exposing for the highlights. You were reading the highlights and the shadows, but you were only exposing for the highlights. So because we've added in a light source, we've remeasured and we can see there isn't a huge difference. So, but you still want to make sure that you're exposing for your highlights. So there's hardly any difference in the exposure. The only thing that's going to be different here is that the shadows are going to have details now. Okay, so let's take a shot. Let's see what we're getting here. I'm just going to check my exposure. My readings, okay. And I'm making sure that I'm sharp, right? So there's little catch lights in the eyes. And now that Andrew's come in with this modifier, there's a catch light. Can you see it, Andrew, from where you're standing?
Yeah.
There's a catch light in the other, in the right eye. Okay. Whereas before, I don't think there was any check. And so that's a really easy way for me to check my exposure, or my focus, yes. Now let's do it. So you can see, I'm just going to delete this one. So you see the difference between the two. So that's the first one, and that's the second one. Sorry, that's the first one, that's the second one. So you're getting a lot more detail. So that's the first one, and that's the second one. So as you're looking for photographs of your, in the magazines and that, notice how much detail there is in the shadows. Maybe it's really bright. Maybe there isn't a huge ratio between the highlights and the shadows. Maybe there is. Okay? But either way, what you're trying to do is effectively recreate what you see in your photograph. Okay? So the different degrees of fill are going to give you different amounts of detail in your shadows. Okay? Perfect. Can you grab the lights for me, someone? Okay.